Are we seeing a change in the target priority for one AFC South team? What AFC North receiver needs to be benched until further notice? And what are we expecting from Deshaun Watson against the Cardinals in Week 9? Plus, the second-place team owner in the FFPC main event, Jake Rennie, is going to hang out with us tonight to break down the Vikings with Jaron Hall, Demario Douglas without Kendrick Bourne, and much more. We've got a great show for you. Ferrell Elliott is here. I'm Eric Balkman. Stick around. Your high-stakes fantasy football hour starts now.
Can't stand the pressure. I've seen greater men than need a lesson.
Broadcast live and heard around the world, you are now watching the most entertaining hour of radio on the planet. Welcome to the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com with your hosts Eric Balkman and Ferrell Elliott. The High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour is your home for analysis from the best players in the world. And now, because no one else was available, here are Eric Balkman and Ferrell Elliott.
Solace in the scripture. Are we not all our father's sons? I became a man. Nobody ever told me what a man was.
Welcome in. Greetings to all the Balkaholics and Ferrelliacs. Thank you so much, Rob. Welcome to the latest episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com. I'm your slightly above average host, Eric Balkman. Follow me on the X at Eric Balkman. You also can check me out on the RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown, the Better Sports Network's High Stakes Fantasy Football Show in the FFPC. My co-host is the definitive commissioner of fantasy football, one Ferrell Elliott, who is going to be joining me shortly. I'll bring him on in a little bit. Coming up on tonight's show, Ferrell and I are going to talk about the correct running back to start for the Rams this weekend as they make their pilgrimage east to take on the Green Bay Packers at Lambeau Field. We're going to talk about whether Rashee Rice, speaking of a pilgrimage east, he's in Germany this week. So we're going to talk about that game and whether Rashee Rice is in for a big game there. And then the second-place team owner in the FFPC main event, Jake Rennie, is going to join us to talk about Chris Rodriguez, sort of that potential change that we could be seeing in the Commanders' backfield here going forward. We're going to talk about Marvin Mims, what's going on with him now that we don't have any trades and Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton are still in Denver. We'll get into that too. If you want to connect with us on Twitter, the show is at hsffhour. I should say connect with us on X. Another quarter in the jar. If you want to connect with us on X, at hsffhour, at Eric Balkman, check out the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship at kffsc.com. Post on our Facebook page at facebook.com/hsffhour if you have any questions for us. You can also email the show at highstakesfantasyfootball@gmail.com. We'll try to get to all your inquiries coming up later on in the fantasy feedback segment before we let you get on to enjoy your weekend here. Thanks to our audio engineer, my best friend Bryce, and our producer and our mutual friend Rob. Go to myffpc.com right now. You probably got two screens up. Go ahead. Go to myffpc.com. Play the FFPC Weekly Challenge. There's no draft. There's no salary cap. Just choose 10 players if you want to play without kickers and defenses, 12 players if you want to play with them. Just get them in by 1 p.m. on Sunday, and then just watch your points pile up for the weekend. Only one player per team. $35 is the base entry fee. You can also enter for $200 and you can win up to $2,500. Another big announcement from the FFPC today, global bidding is now available on myffpc.com, which means you can not only drop players from all your leagues, you can add players, place bids from all your leagues at the click of a button. It's really, really cool. If you go on your My Teams page, you can check out it's sort of like towards the right-hand side of the screen, towards the top, where it says global bidding, and you'll be able to click on that and make your global bids from there. If you want to know how it works, we just posted about a 5-minute tutorial on our YouTube channel that you can check out there. It's also posted on our X profile, so you can scroll through there and check out that 5-minute video if you want to learn how the global bidding process is going to work. It's going to make it easier for you if you have multiple teams, which I know many of you do. People are already saying, how much time this is going to save them on Wednesday night, Sunday morning. So certainly check that out again at myffpc.com. Remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment on the video, share it with your friends and enemies, and get notified every time we go live. We are going live right now with the commissioner of fantasy football, the definitive commissioner of fantasy football. You follow him on the X at Ferrell Elliott. Ferrell Elliott, welcome into the program. Thanks for hanging out.
Oh, buddy, I am so thrilled to be here. I wish I could tell you there was greatness to my lateness tonight, but I'm here though.
You are here, which is the biggest thing. Like, who was it? Who said that 90% of life is just showing up? Something like that?
I did. Because
You said that? Okay.
Yeah, because my talents begin to slide downhill from there. So I was the one who came up with that.
I got it. Okay.
And I'm loving this global thing. I don't know the 5-minute tutorial, by 90 seconds in, I'd be calling in for assistance. But I have plenty of players that should be dropped globally. So I'm
I think that's going to be a lot of it's going to make for a lot more fun, just because I know Fab can be a tedious process.
Oh, yeah.
But I know a lot of people are going to be digging that. I think it's cool. We're pretty proud of it, pretty excited about that at FFPC.com. The Carolina Panthers are pretty proud of their running back stable right now.
Should be.
Proud enough that David Newton's reporting, Ferrell, that Frank Reich is saying Chuba Hubbard is going to start against the Colts this weekend. However, it's still going to be a committee attack. Ray Chung was on the high stakes slowdown a couple weeks ago.
How's Ray doing?
And he's doing very well. And just moved to New York. He's very excited. And he told me, he's like, look, the way that Frank Reich is talking about Hubbard, he's going to be the guy that you want going forward. In week 8, there was 20 running back rush attempts for Carolina. Chuba Hubbard had 15 of them. Miles Sanders, not only did he not have the other 5, he only got 2 snaps the whole game. Chuba Hubbard and Raheem Blackshear sort of went tit for tat on targets in the passing game. And I think that Hubbard is almost, I don't want to say a slam dunk start. I know there's 4 teams on bye, but man, he is tough to sit down right now. And then you look at Miles Sanders, there's not a league I want to have him close to my starting lineup in.
Terp was right. You don't hear us say that every show, but we'll say it tonight. Terp was right about this player. And he had, I don't think Miles returns to fantasy relevance. I think that the owners of Hubbard that had the foresight to put him on the team can look back to the Miami game. In the Miami game, he had 19 carries, and that was the best game of the year. We said it last week about Pollard and Elliott in the example that we talked about. It's difficult to be the guy when Hubbard was the contributory piece, getting about 30% of the snaps out of that backfield. He averaged the Pollard-esque 4.95 yards a carry. Now he's down to earth, more like 3.9, but it's still a solid performer. I look at their schedule going forward. It's not easy, but it's not that difficult. Blackshear will not threaten him in the passing game, although it's likely with his skill set that he'll get some look as a change of pace back. But Hubbard, for better or worse, going forward with Carolina Panthers, looks like a 3-down back to me, Bob.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he does. And I wish I had more of him.
Yeah.
He's one of those guys that, I grabbed a bunch of these backup running backs, but I did not grab enough Hubbard, which is really unfortunate. Let's go to the YouTube chat right now. Rubio's hanging out there watching with us. Who would you start this week? Sam Howell against the Patriots or CJ Stroud against the Bucs? Stroud is at home, and then Howell, obviously on the road. Close for me. I've been digging Stroud, but Howell's been coming on. I still lean towards Stroud in this matchup. Ferrell, do you have strong feelings on this? I don't, but I think I'm going to give the edge to Stroud.
I do. We talked Stroud in Houston last week, and the people that listened to us were bitten by our advice. And we were dealing with a team on the road that was coming off a bye, and Houston played very, very poorly in the red zone. As they return home, they're a different type of team at home. There'll be a different type of situation at the quarterback. So all the things we said good about Carolina last week stands for this week. Houston last week stands for this week, especially Stroud. And I like that. Howell is just, God bless him, he's all over the place. He's an exciting player, great best ball player. You try to figure out when you should start him.
Yeah, it can be confusing, and obviously he crushed it in week 8, put up a pile of points. We'll get into more Commanders talk with Jahan Dotson later on in the program, but to your point, Ferrell, he is very difficult to figure out when he is going to be going off. A guy who has been easier to figure out when he is putting up a good week has been Josh Downs, because he's been putting up a lot of good weeks lately for the Colts. He's dealing with a knee issue. He did practice today, according to James Boyd. We bring this up because He was not listed on Wednesday's injury report at all. He was added to the team's injury report yesterday, and we never like to see that. The fact that he's practicing makes him a solid start, in my opinion. In the last 3 games, 23 targets, which is still behind Michael Pittman, but he's outshined Michael Pittman in a couple of games. I guess the guy who really loses in this scenario is Alec Pierce. But, Ferrell, we're looking at Gardner Minshew as the quarterback the rest of the way, and I think you can make a pretty strong case that Pittman is a nice second receiver for you, a great top flex. And then you could flex out Josh Downs as well. These guys look, I don't want to say every week plays, but the next closest thing.
No, Balky, you're underrating these players. They are every week starts. The Pittman has 50. Downs has 40. They're the kind of passes that you're going to get from Gardner Minshew, where we really got shortchanged, the owners of these receivers. And I would love to just hear from an owner that was smart enough to stack these guys, because I wasn't. I had Pittman everywhere. What held me back from Downs was 5'10", 170. And how that would work with the rookie quarterback. And I knew Pittman was going to get the targets. Pittman continues to get the targets, even with Minshew, double-digit targets in 5 games. But Downs has had double-digit targets in 1 game, and he is the type of player that doesn't need those targets. Balky, you talk about his skill set. You know, he and Pittman complement each other very, very well. Pierce is the odd man out. I don't think he would be if Richardson was there. But Pierce is the odd man out. The tight end is not part of the receiving package in this offense, maybe sometimes in the red zone. What you've got in Downs is a player, and I had to make a choice between Flowers and Downs, and I went with Flowers, and I'm happy with my choice. But what you've got in Downs is a player very, very strong lowers. He's 170 pounds, but in the thighs and hips, very, very strong. And he's got that short area burst, and you can see it all over the field. And that initial burst to get off the line separates him from all the best corners. But he's like the announcers will say, well, he shifted into 5th gear or top gear or there. Yeah, he can beat a corner twice in the routes. And there's just so much I love about him. This guy is going to be a superstar in this league. The Colts are lucky to have him. Both these receivers, even with Minshew, are going to push 100 receptions this year, and they're going to start getting in the end zone. The difference between Downs, what makes him different is Pittman. Pittman's going to win that contested ball, but once he catches it, he's not going to make a lot of guys miss. He caught one down around the 5-yard line a couple weeks ago, and the players just there was no chance at a touchdown. Downs catches that same pass, he'll make 2 tacklers miss. So I love both these players. Balky, if you can quickly get it, I would love to know where he was going once we got to Planet Hollywood with Downs, because I know Pittman was a 7, and I think Downs was a 10, but I'm not sure. But how smart we would have been to wow.
Well, listen, Almost Smart should be the name of this show, because we've had a lot of we've had a lot of good calls. But we've been very close to making some great calls for our own personal teams. Hasn't always happened that way. I can tell you that for the FFPC main event, the final drafts of the year, when we were at Planet Hollywood, Josh Downs. Oh, I can't be looking at this right.
You can't be. No.
19th round.
No way.
There's no way that's accurate.
There's not.
That's and which is weird, because that's what I'm looking at.
Well,
on Mojo.
He was hanging down there with Puka.
Yeah, exactly. Now, where was that's the real question? Puka Nacua, 17th round. So
Yeah.
Was Downs couldn't have been going that late, was he? What am I missing here?
I don't think he was, but hey, look, Darren Armani's numbers do not lie.
Yeah, I guess, and that's what I'm seeing here. 19th round on average, wide receiver 93 in both the Fantasy Pros Championship and the FFPC main event. We could have looked really smart, Ferrell.
Really smart.
Let's try to look really smart right now for Josh. Do you think Kareem Hunt is a good start this week? Kareem Hunt, who is taking on the Arizona Cardinals. We're going to get into the Deshaun Watson aspect of it here shortly, but Kareem Hunt, competing for touches with Pierre Strong and Jerome Ford. Is he the Cleveland Browns running back that you want to play this week?
I don't know. If the question was, is he a better start than he was last week? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So that's as close as I can get to my endorsement of that player. You're dealing with a team with a lot of questions on offense. Let's think about someone else. But, okay, who is he better than? We've got to go way, way, way down the line to find out who he's a better start than. Nothing is particularly coming to my mind.
Okay, well, how about this? Kareem Hunt or Gus Edwards against the Seahawks?
Well, you can't shoot the horse that won the race. You got to go with Gus Edwards.
Okay, so Kareem Hunt or Brian Robinson against the Patriots?
Brian Robinson has flashed a little bit. I like Hunt's upside, so there we go. Let's go with Hunt.
And last one, Kareem Hunt or Alexander Madison against the Falcons?
No, we're never going to start Alexander Madison.
Okay, so there you go on that one. Here's an interesting one again from Josh on YouTube. Do you guys think Aaron Jones is going to bounce back? Aaron Jones, a guy. Okay, so I think I can't remember if I said it on this show, Ferrell, but it was almost to the point where I had to wait till I saw it from Aaron Jones before I could comfortably start him because the Packers were limiting his touches. He wasn't fully healthy. And then Matt LaFleur said, and he doesn't often use this language, but when he was speaking to the media today, he said, Aaron Jones is ready to go. We're ready to cut him loose, which is great. That's what you want to see. Cutting him loose against the Rams defense in Lambeau. Yes, please. I think he's going to bounce back this week. I think he is going to have his second best game of the season next to that big game he had against the Bears in week 1. I think, I'd start him with confidence this week.
Well, Balky, you're the word on everything Wisconsin, and so I follow you, and I'm happy to know that. When we looked at it last week, the contributions between the 20s, when we got down the red zone, Dylan was on the field. And it's enough to make you throw up your hands as a fantasy football player. It looks like they're trying to make Dylan the running back, and he has not answered the bell.
No.
So now
he did have 5 catches last week for what it's worth.
Well, for what it is worth. God bless him.
Yes,
but look, if you drafted Jones, you've got to have productivity from him based on what you spent for him. And if you're still in the hunt, it may be time to collect those dividends. And Balky, I think you advised everyone perfectly as to what to do here. You know, the top 5 running backs in fantasy scoring, and you can confirm this with FFPC numbers, Balky, McCaffrey, Etienne, Mostert, which no one expected, but we all loved, Walker, which you and I love. And then I think it's Zach Moss. So names that we're less familiar with can be very, very meaningful to us, and Jones can put together the season over a short period of time that he needs to put together.
The Zach Moss thing, I was not expecting that name.
Mm-hmm.
I'm verifying right now.
Please verify.
For running backs on the season so far. I'm actually showing here. Oh, let's sort it the right way, Balky, you idiot. McCaffrey, Etienne, Mostert. Moss is 4th. So he's actually ahead. And Walker's not 5th. You know who's 5th?
Who?
DeAndre Swift.
DeAndre Swift. Sure.
Yeah, so that's that is crazy.
Sometimes you got to look at the statisticals, Balky.
Right.
Bobby Sangerman says it's all in the stats, Balky. You got to look at them.
Yeah.
Got to look at the statisticals.
By the way, you know who is 8th on this list, and he's been on IR for like 2 or 3 weeks, is Kyron Williams.
Yeah. Kyron Williams was a stud for the Rams in a short period of time.
A guy who the Browns were hoping was going to be a stud, and he has not been that way. Deshaun Watson is going to return to be under center this week, Ferrell. He's going to start week 9. Now, we've seen this guy come cold into a season before. You think about last year, and it wasn't great. He's missed some time this year. He's dealing with an injury. He's not fully healthy, obviously, but he's healthy enough to play. I would say, okay, this is a slam dunk. Let's see what he does. I'll keep him on my bench. Let's see what he does this week, and then we'll think about starting him in week 10. But he gets the Arizona Cardinals this week. Is he compelling at all to you, or are you resisting temptation and you're going to keep Watson on your bench this week and see what he does before you deploy him again in your lineups?
We got to play the game against who is he better than. And,
who's your better
with some
player?
of the injuries, he may be better then. And if you drafted him, you likely believed in him. I didn't draft him, so I don't necessarily believe in him.
Yeah.
If you drafted him, he was one of two. And if your other one was if your other one was Cousins, then you'll be starting Watson.
Watson. Yes,
There's not a lot of guys that I want to start him over this weekend, but how many buys we've got? We're lining up Jacksonville on bye, and
Detroit is on bye.
Yeah, and a lot of people are leaning on Goff, and so I imagine we'll see him in some lineups. And you know what? If I have an opponent that's starting him based on the quarterbacks that I'll run out this week, I'll be pretty happy about that.
We have Jake Rennie, the second place team in the FFPC main event, standing by. Last thing I want to get to before we get to him is what happened with George Pickens last night and then today. Pickens catches 2 passes last night for -1 yard. This is coming off a week where he had 1 catch last week, I think for 22 yards and a touchdown last week. And he did see 2 end zone targets last night as well. And he was basically a half a foot away from corralling one of those for a touchdown. But obviously with Deontay Johnson returning, Johnson had a fantastic game last night, finally scoring a touchdown for the first time since 2021. Pickens is playing the Green Bay Packers in Week 10, a team that is hell-bent on not giving up the big play, something that Pickens has specialized in. Pickens posted on his Instagram today, set me free or come get me or set me free, something like that. And then he removed all the Steelers, images and everything from his account. Now, the point, what do we do for fantasy? At this point, Ferrell, Pickens to me was already sort of like a fringe number 3 receiver, a fringe flex. And now, man, I'm finding ways to get him out of my lineup going forward. I don't like the way this is trending in Pittsburgh, and I don't like his reaction to what's happened the last 2 weeks to him either. I
don't either. And he should have got his other foot down. He could have done his celebration and got more out of it. Okay, there's time to bring it together, and if anyone can bring it together, it's that coach in Pittsburgh. He'll get him with a little bit of tough love and his own feeling. That's a great team with excellent players, and I don't think this kid's ready to spin off the earth just yet. And he is a very, very young player. I think that we're seeing this more when you have such a talent at a wide receiver that defenses are going to roll towards that player. They're going to do everything they can to shut down that one player, and they're going to ask you to beat you. Go ahead and beat me with Deontay Johnson, especially when your number 1 tight end is not available to you. And, the Pittsburgh figured out how they wanted to win. I think the announcers broke it down very, very well last night. Matt Canada calls a game based on the fact that we want to win with defense in Pittsburgh and we want to score 20 points and win games. So, Mr. Pickens might need to look at the fact that he is making contributions to the Pittsburgh Steelers, not trying to compare himself with Downs and Addison and Flowers to that degree that we love as fantasy players. Now, Pickens is like Spider-Man with the football. He brings, we just talked about Downs and Pittman, he brings elements of both their games and the better elements of both their games. He's a fantastic player. I think he was a bargain in the draft, and he was a bargain in the draft not based on talent, but because of how the intelligent players on the FFPC understand that he was going to, that his landing spot wasn't good. And so it's not good. So, someone, perhaps his agent might have to tell him that the trade deadline is over. He set me free 2 days after the trade deadline.
Yeah.
So, timing is everything, Balky,
Yeah, and George Pickens did not get his timing of his feet down or the timing of his employment down.
Call Nate Burleson. Nate Burleson.
Yeah, no toe drag swag on that one.
Talk to him about the feet. Gotta get the feet down.
Let's talk with our guest tonight, who we're going to bring in right now. He's a multi-league champion in the FFPC. He began this past week just 1 spot out of first place in the chase for $1 million in the Fantasy Football Players Championship main event. please help me in welcoming onto the program Mr. Jake Rennie. Jake, happy Friday to you, dude. How are you?
Happy Friday. I'm doing good. How are you guys?
Doing excellent. Doing excellent. Glad to have you on. I know that you have your main event, former main event champion. What's it like when week 8 ended? You know you're about halfway through the season, halfway through the NFL season. Obviously, we're motoring through the regular season of the main event. You see your team name second place overall in the chase for $1 million. What's that feeling like?
I mean, how could it not be fun, man? But that being said, it's been the most stress-free team I've ever had to manage. You just look at the lineup, and then I haven't made any changes for the most part, really.
and sometimes that's the best way to. I mean, like we have seen a lot of. I shouldn't say a lot. We have seen a few former overall champions over the years draft really well. Depth wasn't all that great. But that made lineup setting easier, and it made team management easier too. So there is something to be said for having a stress-free path to $1 million. Yeah. We'll see if you can finish the job. We're going to talk with you about who you plan on finishing the job and cashing that 7-figure payday. Before we get into that, Jake, can you tell us what you're doing for a living? I believe you're in Massachusetts, right?
That's right. I am in Massachusetts. Been a Patriots fan. I work for a wedding company right now, doing private and wedding events, so it kind of makes watching football easier. At least.
Yeah, like it's a Saturday night, you make sure everything goes off without a hitch, and then Sunday it's all about just laying around and taking in a fantasy football, right?
Right. Hardly ever any weddings on Sunday. So
right, yeah, it's a good gig. It's a really good gig, Ferrell.
And you're exposed to bridesmaids during this activity.
That's correct.
Man, you're showing up with that mustache.
That's
and
right.
You're relaxed. You don't have a lot of stress. I like the way things are going for you, Jake.
That's great gas, Ferrell, man. That's great gas.
But I don't like anything about what's going on in Minnesota with the departure of our Mr. Cousins. And when I look at your roster, there's nothing you can do about your roster. You were smart enough to roster 7 touchdowns already from Jordan Addison. Congratulations. What do you know about our quarterback, Balky? What's his name? Jaron
Hall.
Jaron Hall.
Yeah.
Jaron Hall.
Who actually, I don't know if you guys realize this, and I found this out. He was the quarterback for BYU last year that was throwing passes to Puka Nacua, believe it or not. I had mind blown when the first time I heard that.
What do you know about him, Jake? Let's listen to you.
Like Eric earlier, I did figure out he was throwing passes to Puka watching his highlights earlier because I did not know who Jaron Hall was.
Mm-hmm. Well, I didn't even know his name. I couldn't recall his name, although I watched him throw passes. I tell you what you're going to get, and this is what concerns me. He's a guy that's very, very uncomfortable in the pocket, which is what your Addison has been. Just why these guys we're talking about, Allen and Flowers, they're averaging 10 or 12 yards a catch. Your Addison's averaging 15, 16, sometimes 17, because the Cousins would wait until the very last moment to get him the ball, and you're not going to get that anymore. So now you're going to think to see a lot of what we saw from Deontay Johnson. Let's hope we're not going to see what we saw from Mr. Pickens, is what Pittsburgh is trying to do. But this is a player, and my biggest fear about this guy is that it's going to get rough for him, and he's going to tuck it and start running, which is what he liked to do in college. Of course, in college, he was running away from the Nevada Wolfpack and the Boise States and those guys, and he's not going to run very far away from these NFL players. So I temper and change your expectations for Addison. My question to you is Addison such a player that it doesn't matter, he'll still find a way to get his? Your thoughts on Addison, because it's got to be your favorite player on your roster, right?
Yeah, we can only hope he can overcome what's going to come fantasy or quarterback wise.
Mm-hmm.
You're right that Cousins was more willing to stand in and throw, whereas Hall is inexperienced. He hasn't played NFL defenses. He's gonna want to, if his first read's not there, he's gonna want to tuck and run. So, but like you said, Addison just might be a superstar, man. He might just be able to figure it out.
Yeah, the fellas are chiming in that Dobbs is there and is the heir apparent to the position, but not this week, boys. And every week, every week is a new season in the NFL. All of us are experiencing that, except you, who haven't changed your lineup since week 1. God bless you, and I'm so proud of you. But my point is that we got to get to stay number 2. You've got to get that consistent performance, and that's what I want you to do, Jake. I want you to stay up there at the top where you can come back and win, Balky. February, have a big celebration. It was January. Yep. Talk about it. It's going to be good.
It will be good.
It's going to be good. You got excellent taste in music. Guys are chiming in here about some of your poster work. What's that to the right of Steely Dan back there?
This is a Led Zeppelin poster.
Oh, yeah.
Steely Dan. That's just our piece. The swing. Yeah.
Jake, you just might be okay.
Yeah. Passing the test with flying colors tonight, Jake, for sure. You know what test you passed? A week ago. This would have been, roughly a week ago. Off the waiver wire on this second place team, for $1 singular, Demario Douglas became a member of this squad. When people were paying through the teeth, you got him for $1. Kendrick Bourne no longer a part of the 2023 plans for the New England Patriots. What are your expectations for Demario Douglas, who was coming on with a lot of targets from Mac Jones, even while Kendrick Bourne was healthy?
Right. And the Pats are going to have to lean on him, right? Because Parker's going to be out too. And then it's Juju and then Jalen Reagor, who they took from Minnesota earlier in the year. So he's going to have to be on the field every snap. He played 70% of the snaps last week. I mean, he has NFL level burst, and Mac just needs to throw it deep once in a while.
I really like that player. And, Parker is not available. Surprise, surprise. Balky Parker, Devontae Parker not available.
The best ability is availability.
Yeah.
We wish Devontae Parker well. I think it's a concussion this time. He won't be on the field. But Demario Douglas, I shouldn't say nobody's talking about him, but I feel like he's still flying under the radar. He could have a Boffo week 9 here, and then everybody's going to be talking about him. Not to pick him up because he's rostered everywhere, Ferrell, but they're going to be talking to get him in your starting lineups everywhere you can. I think that's going to be interesting.
What did you see in him that made you pick him up before the injury to Bourne?
Well, I'm locked into Patriots stuff, so he's a name that if you're a Patriots fan, you've heard his name since before training camp because he's the only one with real NFL speed on that team. So
real NFL speed, Balky. You hear that?
Yes, I did. Yeah,
it's fantastic.
Speed kills.
It's good stuff. Geography is important in this too. That's good stuff. Geography down here, just down the road from me at the University of Kentucky, was Chris Rodriguez, and I liked the player when he was drafted. I was, very curious to see where he would land. I did not like the landing spot. Naturally, I mean, who could? He's on your roster. Why? And what do you see in him?
Well, he's healthy. He's a healthy running back body, which
That's
my team desperately needs. And he was efficient when he got some carries a couple weeks ago. And then I picked him up thinking it would keep going. And then he kind of got blanked for snaps the past couple weeks. That being said, I mean, Washington's offense has surprised a lot of people. And, Gibson just isn't really that good. Robinson always hasn't been healthy, so it can still work.
He's a capable running back, and at Kentucky, he was one of those guys who seemed to get the ball. He would do more with more opportunity. And in the third and fourth quarter, he was running hard and running past SEC opponents, which is a big thing. It's one of his strengths that he probably won't play to. But I like the pickup because especially late in the year, if somebody said, hey, we're going with this young running back Rodriguez and he's going to be the feature guy, big things could happen. So I like that pickup. I picked him up a couple places too, but that wasn't for any second place team because I don't have any second place teams.
They're all in first. That's
no.
The other thing too with the Commanders backfield, Antonio Gibson has been underwhelming like for years now. Brian Robinson, you mentioned the health aspect, Jake, which I agree with. But it's not like Brian Robinson is like setting the world on fire and forcing the Commanders to keep him on the field because of his superior play. They could be turning to Rodriguez sooner rather than later, a healthy running back on a team that has shown that running backs can be successful in that system, and you picked him up for $1. Yeah, see what happens. I like that call quite a bit. Now, on your second place main event team this week, you have a very interesting call because you do have some bye issues. Was it Javonte Williams? Who was the guy that you have on bye, your second running back this week?
Etienne's on bye.
Travis Etienne. That's right. I'm sorry. So you don't have him this week. Yes.
Right.
Who's going to be starting next to Raheem Mostert this week instead of Etienne? You have a lot of options here. I wouldn't say any of them are fantastic, but what's your thought process on figuring out which running back is going to be in your lineup next to Mostert?
Yeah, there's still some news coming out on some of these running backs availability for Sunday. There's still some guys on the waiver wire I can get on Sunday to do a spot start. It'll probably be one of those guys on the waiver wire that I'll have to pick up and play. But if not, maybe I'll throw Travion Williams in there. Maybe Mixon loses a couple snaps, because he's not good. I don't know. It's going to be tough either way.
Jake, let me ask you this. I'll ask a selfish question here. I'm battling a similar situation in one of my KFFSC leagues, actually, Ferrell, where I have one really good running back on my team. I have two really good running backs, and I'm missing one this week because of bye. I could pick up, if I wanted, either Damian Williams or Keontae Ingram. No Amari DeMarcado at practice today. He's probably not going to be playing. But it's the Browns, and that is a really, really tough defense. Are you expecting any kind of fantasy production from either one of those players? Right now, I don't have any bids in on either of those guys to pick them up. But I've gone back and forth on it. What do you foresee happening between Williams and Ingram this week, assuming DeMarcado misses?
Yeah, I could be convinced with Keontae. He's kind of shown he can be shifty, and maybe still wondering on Kyler's going to play. Is there any news on that yet? Do we know?
No, I think, what did I read that they're going to make the decision on the plane? I think Jonathan Gannon said something like that. Right? Yeah, it just makes no sense. I know today, Jake, and this is official. There was a Cardinals beat reporter that was watching practice. Clayton Tune was throwing to the starting pass catchers at practice, and Kyler Murray is throwing to the backups and practice squad guys. So I would assume it's probably going to be Clayton Tune, but we don't know anything official yet.
We're big Clayton Tune fans here on the show.
We love Clayton Tune. Yeah,
we have always been Clayton Tune fans.
Yes.
Since he was first introduced to us. We like Clayton. We like Clayton. There's a player that I can't quit talking about, and I'm interested to talk about him because I can get a fresh dimension and feel for him. Now, occasionally, Jake, we have guests that come on the show and struggle a little bit because they're intimidated by being in the presence of a broadcast professional like Balky, and I do what I can to make it easy for them. But quite honestly, sometimes we write the questions, to throw you a big softball. And that's the way I think. Number 6 was a softball question, and you're not getting it that way. There's some question about who do you like better, Flowers, Bateman, Beckham. I mean, my girlfriend Bobcat could pick out that choice. So, I mean, so we're okay. So what I want to know is, how long ago did you get tuned in and turned on to Flowers? Because Flowers is excellent there. It's your local university, apparently. Right?
That's right, Boston College.
And who did he remind you of? And was he your go-to, gotta have rookie receiver like he was for me?
I think Flowers is a really interesting player because I think most of the people were saying he was kind of like Antonio Brown coming out in a way, kind of that smaller size, but could still attack at all levels and could be successful. But yeah, I mean, he was someone, he didn't really rise up draft boards during draft season that hard.
That's because Boston College
were all, they all kind of went around the same place. So I feel like you had to attack.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of rookies that we're talking about that we wish we had grabbed. At some point you got to say, oh, I got too many rookies, right, Balky? I mean, how many can you get? Yeah. And this year you couldn't have got, it just stack them up, because how fascinating it was. I feel that Flowers is Tyreek Hill waiting to happen. Am I wrong?
Spicy. I love it. I love that. During the drafting season, Ferrell, just jogged my memory. For a while, all three of those Ravens receivers were all kind of bunched up: Flowers, Beckham, and Bateman. And then I want to say probably without about a month to go in drafting season, maybe it was more like 5 or 6 weeks. Then we saw the separation where Flowers was going 2 rounds ahead, 3 rounds ahead of those other guys, but still not as far ahead as he should have been going because he's been having a fantastic season this year. Another rookie receiver that I did see flying up draft boards, and this was happening in mid-August, is Marvin Mims. Everybody was excited to draft Marvin Mims as their 5th receiver, 6th receiver, because the pathway to success went through Jerry Jeudy and Courtland Sutton, and those are very wide, expansive highways to get through, right? And it was there. It was all there for Mims. We were counting down the days, or Marvin Mims owners were counting down the days, Jake, until the trade deadline, because one or both of those receivers were definitely going to be moved, right? Yep. Neither one of them was. Now that we know that as long as Jeudy and Sutton are healthy, they are going to be playing the duration of the 2023 season in Denver for the Broncos. Is Marvin Mims actually cuttable right now, or is he still a player that you want to keep around just in case something happens with Jeudy or Sutton?
I don't think you can cut him yet. I mean, it hasn't been good. But, I think you just have to stick with the talent. He's done a little to, to keep you in. That being said, too, there was the third Broncos receiver got injured recently. Was it Brandon Johnson?
Brandon. Yeah.
Yep.
Brandon, good receiver. It's very impressive that you recognize Brandon there.
Oh, Jake's he's all world, man. He knows this.
Yeah, he's all world.
He's all world.
When John Lennon leaned in and sung "It Can't Get Much Worse," and you had to admit it's getting better all the time. It can't get much worse. That's where we are with Mims. I don't know how to ask question number 8. It's a standard bottom line necessary question. What's the toughest lineup situation that you're having this weekend? We've already talked about your running back problems, and then you have no other problems. Balky, do you want to go to the chat room? And there's some guys asking some questions in here. I mean, Jake might be able to shine some light on what he would do if he had to deal with this sort of pedestrian lineup of some of our.
And I'll ask you this. So Bill Hollywood, who's hanging
Bill Hollywood,
you mentioned earlier, Jake, about there could be a running back on your waiver wire that you would look at this week, and starting him. Bill Hollywood mentioned Chase Edmonds. Would you have any interest in Chase Edmonds for the Buccaneers, starting him in a desperate situation as your second running back?
I think he can, because he already is solidified in that third down role. Rachaad White just hasn't really done anything this year. I mean, he's kind of compiled stats, but it hasn't really meant that much.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Bucs offense isn't really anything to sleep on. They've been pretty good to me so far this year. So, it's a pretty good offense. Chase Edmonds not a super talented player, but he still has a little bit of burst. I think you can still pick him up.
And we're talking about a 1 week thing here too, which I think we need to drive that point home too. It's not like we're picking up Edmonds for the duration of the season or anything like that. We're trying to figure out we're trying to catch lightning in a bottle here. And that can be very difficult with running backs in the waiver wire. I'm in the same predicament in the league I already told you about, and a couple other leagues. It's not great either, but we'll get through it. We'll do it together. That's the way we always do it on this show. A couple of emails that rolled in for you here, Jake. Jeff in Bourne, Texas. Hey, Jake, are all 3 Denver running backs worthy of being on my rosters? Jeff in Bourne, Texas. We appreciate you, man. Thank you for emailing in. McLaughlin, Javonte Williams, Samaje Perine. All 3 of those guys are not playing this week. They are on a bye. Very, very difficult to keep them on your roster. Now, I don't think Jeff is asking about keeping all 3 on the same roster, but are all 3 of these guys roster worthy for you going forward, Jake?
I mean, yeah, probably. I mean, that being said, I mean, one of them's probably going to get cut out as the season goes on because Javonte's getting healthier. I think they're planning on using him more and more. So maybe one of the other guys, maybe P. Ryan, maybe McLaughlin get cut out. But I think you can maybe for a couple more weeks.
Who's our guy, Balky, that always says never release a running back?
Adam Krautwurst. Adam Krautwurst.
Krautwurst. Krautwurst is right about some things. I don't know. But, I suppose you're waiting for Williams to return to injury for him, and then those other guys in that juggernaut Denver Bronco offense. But Williams is beginning to get it. He's beginning to look like the Williams we expected. So it's good stuff.
And we knew it was going to be a process, right? We knew it was going to be a process for him to get all the way back, and he's getting there. Like, there were so many people just falling all over themselves talking about Jaleel McLaughlin at the start of the season, and even in early October. You haven't heard that same buzz lately, and Javonte Williams is a huge reason for that. Ed in San Diego writes in, what happened to Tony Pollard this year? Thanks in advance. That's Ed in San Diego. Last night on the Better Sports Network on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Show, Dave Turpoli was on. And Dave Ferrell, as you know, the biggest Tony Pollard guy out there. And it was like he was giving a eulogy at a funeral last night, talking about Pollard. He's like, I don't know, man. It hurts. I own him everywhere. He was of the opinion, Jake, that once Pollard had the opportunity to be the guy on that Dallas offense, he could be a top 5 player.
He was going to average 8 yards a carry.
Exactly.
He was the greatest player that ever.
And talked about him being potentially the number 1 overall running back. It's not happening for him. I know you have Pollard on a few of your teams. Do you have any, response or any sort of guess as to why things have been so mediocre at best for Tony Pollard in Dallas this year?
Well, I think some of it has been game script driven. The Cowboys have had some funky game scripts where they just let off the gas late or they're getting smoked. So that being said, Pollard still hasn't looked that great. He's, he needs to score touchdowns if he wants to be, be near the top of the.
He came in, and it's just we've just been saying this so long, and we fight with Terp, and it falls on deaf ears. But he came in with a different level of responsibility, and being a change of pace back is one thing, being the lead back is another thing. And Dallas is looking for wins. Now, here's the thing about Pollard: he's going to be better down the stretch than he's been so far, and that's my opinion on Pollard. But I would have poor Dave Turp. I hope you guys didn't push him around too much. Yes,
What about this comment from Rob Phillips? As I recall, Dave also liked Antonio Gibson this year. I don't remember that. Is that true, Ferrell?
Yeah, I don't ever remember him liking a member of the Foreskins, but
right, yeah.
He possibly could have. Rob asked a very interesting question coming out of New York. Maybe as an East Coaster, our guest could handle that one. I have my opinion.
Rob Phillips wants to know, and Bill Hollywood's been talking about Daniel Bellinger too as a potential flex this week with Darren Waller already ruled out, not only this week but multiple weeks. But Rob wants to know, gun to your head, and we're not going to do that physically, but Giants wide receiver that benefits the most from Darren Waller's absence. There's a lot of guys to pick from here. Is there one that stands out to you, Jake?
It'd be Wandale for me.
Wandale Robinson.
Yeah.
Pride of Kentucky.
Yep. Gotta be Wandale because Jones is coming back from an injury. he can't take another injury. I mean, what is he, like one neck injury away from being basically out of the league at this point? So he has to get the ball out of his hands.
I see where you're going with that. I see where you're going with that. A little physical demands of the quarterback to get rid of the ball early. I like your case there for Wan'Dale. I like Slayton, but I like your case for Wan'Dale. I think that's impressive.
Yeah, Wan'Dale Robinson is, second round pedigree, a guy that has flashed when he's been in there. I think he just like anything, more reps, more targets, and the more he gets, it seems like the more he does with them too. So I think Robinson is probably the guy I would pick as well. That said, I also don't think that any one of these guys is going to turn into somebody that you want to,
no,
breaking your
that's
neck
kind of
to
the
get your
salient
lineups
point
in.
there.
Yeah,
you don't want them.
Farrell, we do want one last thing, and that's to answer your final question.
I'm going to ask it a little differently.
Go ahead.
I'm going to ask it a little differently because I'm not looking for the bust of the week because I don't think.
No, that's not in there. I took that out.
I don't think Jake knows anything about bust anyway.
No. We only draft studs.
God, it's a bust. The guy only scored 15 points for me. That's a terrible situation. Okay,
I drafted Rashad Penny on that team.
There you go.
About bad picks.
There's somebody you can use the global wavering. Who should we get into the lineups this week? Who should you put in? What's your gutsy play? Or there were some questions about Kareem Hunt earlier, and I think that takes a little guts to make that move. And there was questions about down in Houston, do you stick with those guys? I say yes. Who's your gutsy move of the week to put in your lineup?
How about Kyle Pitts? Someone who probably has lost his lineup spot in a lot of people's lineups, but London's going to be out this week. Heineke stepping in as the quarterback. Pitts hasn't been that good. But he could draw a lot of targets this week.
He could.
Almost like he has to, right? Because
now
we got a Jonnu Smith question coming up.
God,
as well. But so that's coming. But I think the thing with the Falcons is, and Arthur Smith is going to Arthur Smith. I just always expect the unexpected from that offense now going forward. Like Kyle Pitts, he could have 8 for 120 and 2 touchdowns. He might have 3 for 15. I just don't know what that team is capable of anymore.
And we got a Jonnu Smith question coming. Irv can't be too far behind.
No, there's no Irv Smith questions.
Jake, you're probably not old enough to remember a couple years ago when Mac Hollins came in and scored 30 points for the great Raider team, and I think it was week 5. Would you think about putting Mac in your lineup? He still doesn't have any shoes, but he's got a job with the Falcons.
Maybe. He was a pretty popular pick for me in the last rounds, like during the summer.
Yeah, you could have been picking Josh Downs or
right. Could have been picking Puka.
Yeah, Puka Nuka.
Or Nakua, yeah.
Yeah, him too.
Kyle Pitts, I think, is an interesting guy this week. I think that the majority, here's the thing. If you drafted Kyle Pitts, you were probably starting him already at your tight end spot. I think I want to ask you here, and I just had it on my screen. Bear with me for 1 second. About I want to ask you about the Bears running back situation. Are any of those guys tripping your trigger against New Orleans this week? Be it Foreman, Johnson, Darrington Evans, who got some run last week. Is there any love for any of those guys as sort of put them in your lineup and see what happens, desperation type guy?
Yeah, if you're desperate, probably lean Roshan, but I don't know. I don't know if you want any of those.
You don't like any of them. Okay. And that's a fair answer to that question too.
Wasn't it our guest, Brad Whitten, that told us told us to get Foreman in the lineup when he scored his 3 touchdowns, or was that our guest from the week before?
It might have been the week before. I think that was Matt Modico, right?
Oh, it was Matt. Exactly.
That said that, yeah. But
sorry about that, Matt.
We were talking with Brad about Foreman last week too. I remember that as well.
Yeah.
We covered a lot of ground tonight from the second place team owner in the FFPC main event. a guy that has millions of dollars, or at least $1 million on his mind, trying to win it in the FFPC main event this year. His name's Jake Rennie. He was a fantastic guest. Jake, we wish you nothing but the best of luck going forward. May the ball bounce your way this weekend, and may you cash that 7-figure grand prize at the end of the season. Thanks for joining us tonight, dude.
This has been awesome. Thank you guys so much.
Be good. We'll talk to you later, Jake. Jake Rennie, ladies and gentlemen, second place team owner in the FFPC main event heading into week 9. Let's get into some starter sits. I know you want to talk tight ends, Ferrell.
I just love tight ends in this.
Listen,
I don't have to.
No, we're going to, because I got a perfect segue planned into that. So we're going to get into it.
Let's do it.
The first email is going to come from Justin in Philadelphia. Is Jordan Love the smarter play at home against the Rams over Geno Smith in Baltimore? Justin in Philly, we appreciate you. This is compelling to me because I think the Packers offense actually shows up for both halves this week. I think they have a good week, although Geno Smith has Metcalf, has Lockett, both of them off the injury report this week. They're going to play. Jackson Smith and Jigba going to play. Charbonnet, Walker, like everybody is there. The full squadron of Seahawks, the whole flock is ready to take on the Ravens. That said, I don't know how well they're going to do. I trust the track record for the Seahawks more. I trust the matchup and my own gut in thinking that the Packers are actually going to put up 20-some plus points this week. I know it's not popular. I'm going to say Love over Geno Smith, but I am biased.
I'm going to say Geno Smith because people just count him out and count him short his entire career. And I'm not going to be the one to do it for Jordan Love. I'd probably do it for some other quarterbacks, but not Love. So either way, if you're in this situation, you've got two compelling quarterbacks because your number one guy is probably not available. Say it's Lawrence, maybe. You've done a good job giving yourself options. Let's just put it that way.
Mm-hmm. I think that I obviously could be wrong on this too. I mean, the if you look at what the Packers have done, no first half touchdowns in like 5 weeks or something like that. It's been insane. I'm telling you, I have a feeling this week, and I think Love turns it on, and I think he outscores Smith. Very, very close. Mm-hmm. Get to the next email here. Randy in Dayton. Hey, fellas, which backup running back should I start this week? Royce Freeman at the Packers or Zach Moss at Carolina? Thank you. That is Randy in Dayton. Do we know, Ferrell, that, I mean, is Royce Freeman going to be the backup?
Randy, go look at those statisticals. Go look at your statisticals.
Right.
Zach Moss is your guy.
So the thing with Moss is like, and I feel like we've said this the last couple of weeks, Ferrell, that Moss and Taylor were both startable.
Yeah.
And yeah, Taylor's been getting the lion's share of the carries, but Moss has been very efficient with his guys as well. I'm with his touches as well. I'm with you on this. I think it's Moss, even though the Packers rush defense has been bad this year. I still think it's Moss over Freeman this week. So you and I are of similar accord there. Fred in Grand Rapids. Hi, Ferrell and Balky. Would you roll with Jahan Dotson or Rashee Rice this weekend? Now, Rashee Rice doesn't really matter if it's a home game or not because it's sort of a road game for both the Chiefs and the Dolphins. They're playing in Germany this week. Rashee Rice is. Jahan Dotson is going up against the Patriots on the road. And that is interesting. Well, that matchup is not interesting, but the Dotson aspect is interesting because this is a guy that's been on the come up. He's been slowly. He looked like a massive bust 4 or 5 weeks ago, and now he's slowly starting to rebuild his value. Ferrell, which one would you rather play this week? Is it Dotson or is it Rice?
If you get off X and go to Instagram, you'll find all these guys popping up to tell you not to overthink things in your life, Balky. Do not overthink this one. Rashee Rice, you asked me weeks ago who the emerging receiver would be, and I want to roll back the script because I'm hoping you said if it's in addition to Rice. I think we agreed, and I said Tony, and Tony is still waiting to emerge. He's actually still being waited. He hasn't even gone into the deep end yet. Rashee Rice is diving off the high dive, man. Get Rashee Rice in your lineup. He'll find the end zone over there in Germany this weekend.
Over Dotson, you would still play.
Oh yeah,
Dotson.
easy. It's easy choice. Don't even think.
All right, so I won't think about it.
Don't even think about it.
I'm going to play Rice then. I'm going to play Rice. I was kind of on the fence on this, but if I'm not allowed to think, I'm just going to go with Rashid Rice. Rashid Rice. I listen to my co-host, ladies and gentlemen. Final email we have this week is from Rick in Salida, Colorado. I'm in a tough spot at tight end for week 9. Would you play Hunter Henry over Jonnu Smith?
Oh, you
Drake
are.
London probably not playing. Keep up the great work. That's Rick in Salida, Colorado. Well, officially now we do know that Drake London is not playing this week. It will be the Jonnu Smith, Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson, perhaps Mac Hollins show against the Vikings this week. Henry this week or Jonnu Smith, Ferrell?
Wow. Sometimes when I travel, especially on like New York to LA or, and of course they're traveling private, but sometimes I'll imagine, that Angelina Jolie, if I get bumped up to first class, that she might come in and sit down next to me on the plane, It would be a similar likelihood of Jonnu Smith ever helping your fantasy team. Now, he can occasionally catch balls. And, miracles do happen. You don't need to cash in on that. Jonnu Smith or who?
Hunter Henry.
Well, Hunter Henry is what you're going to do here, especially, but that's, that's a long wait too. How did you get yourself into this situation?
Well, he said it's a bad week, so I'm assuming that it's a bye week.
Well, if it's a bad week, put your bets on the guy that's got the biggest track record of being a player. That's Hunter Henry. And Jonnu Smith is a journeyman tight end who is backing up a star that they can't get the ball to. Why should they get – and everything's all – because we got a new quarterback. And, I'm dreaming of Desmond coming in the fourth quarter and saving the team, but that's another dream too. I have a lot of dreams, Balkman.
Yeah, well, it's good to be a dreamer.
I'm telling you, man. Always dreaming. 2017 Kentucky Derby winner.
There you go. Jonnu Smith had that section in the middle of the season where he had 5 for 37, 6 for 95, 6 for 67, but the last 3 weeks.
Those are real numbers.
Those, yes. And it's been bad after that. It's going the wrong way. 4 for 36, 3 for 27, and last week against the Titans, 1 catch for 13 yards. So I think you are better off with Hunter Henry, even though Drake London will not be out there this week for Atlanta. What aspect of tight ends did you want to cover tonight? I know for me, I was scrambling a little bit in a lot of my leagues because I have Laporta everywhere.
Yeah.
And I had to kind of figure out what I'm doing at tight end this week.
Well, I think we got a nod. I think we got a nod ahead to you. Tip the cap, so to speak, because there's a lot of people that buy into the fact that your rookie tight ends can't help you. And you didn't do that. You were strong in Laporta, and he I believe he's the number 3 producing tight end in the FFPC. I think we're beginning to get what we wanted to get from Andrews. I think a compelling start is Goddard. We have to count on Goddard. Things have soured in Buffalo. Things continue to be souring in Atlanta. I believe that the tight end, and we really had good timing on it, with Dalton Schultz. I believe that Dalton Schultz is ready to take off, but he turned in a disappointing number last week. So it remains a key. I would like to know what you think about Higbee this weekend. But the tight end position, for those that did not spend the draft capital to get the elite or the fantastic rookie, it's very important to people that are still in contention that don't have those players as to what they're going to do. And I think it changes every single week. And it's got to be more than a guessing game for you. And Evan Ingram can't find the end zone, but last week he put up 22 points. Mm-hmm. And hopefully when he comes through the bye weekend, he'll be putting up more. So I just think it's the most compelling position in the FFPC. And I think I'm waiting to find a late season riser, a guy that if we looked at double-digit weeks, we could say, well, after we hit week 10, that guy was in the top 5, and maybe that guy could be Goddard. I don't know.
It could be, who else it could be if he keeps up this pace and he's got a ways to go. Could be Dalton Kincaid too.
Mm-hmm. Could be Logan Thomas, who I poo-pooed your idea Logan Thomas, and he's been he's been a good contributor.
Number 13 for tight ends in the FFPC this year,
and he could be in the top 5 from now through the end of the season.
Now, here's a guy who's actually closer than both of those guys to the top 5 right now. And I don't know if you have your figures in front of you, but the guy who is 7th in scoring for tight ends this year in the FFPC, he's behind Kelsey, Hawkinson, Laporta, Andrews, Engram, Kittle. Who is number 7 on this list, Ferrell?
Good question. Is Jake Ferguson moved that quickly up?
Ferguson is he's outside the top.
Ferguson's
50.
Still down. Oh, goodness, Balky, dead air. I don't have an answer for you.
Cole Kmet.
Okay, well, that's our boy. That's our boy. Now, Cole will do that to you. He'll throw you up some good numbers, and then he'll throw you a 0. When's his last 0? Was it last week or the week before?
Last week he had 22.9. So
it's a good week last week. The week before
he had 0 against the Raiders.
So he'll throw those out there, and a lot of that's quarterback and situational dependent. You would have to think, since the young rookie quarterback is in, he had a 0 the next game. It looks better, and you would have to think that it's going to continue to look better.
Right. Yeah. You think back to where we were drafting these guys, the order we were drafting them in, and you look at how, and again, it's a long season. We're basically halfway through the NFL season, but you look at Sam Laporta, number 3, Cole Kmet is number 7. Logan Thomas is 13 on this list right now. Jonnu Smith-Farrell is 15th. I'll just put that out there right
with
now.
A bullet. Where's Irv?
Yeah,
Where is Irv?
He's way down.
We need a number. He's surely on the chart.
He's not on the chart I'm looking at. I'm looking
28,
at
20.
No, he's lower than that. He's got to be. What did I say? Logan Thomas was 13. So you're looking at. Yeah. I mean, my God,
Irv,
Ferrell.
Irv was the tight end poster child for the pros during the pros versus Joes, right. If you will recall. Just want to throw that out there.
I am looking
at Joe.
He is outside the top 50 right now. 19.7 points for the FFPC.
He's had a moment or two.
Yeah, and everybody's asking about Jelani Woods, Ferrell. Any insight into that?
I don't know. I think he's re-enrolled at Oklahoma State, but he's out of eligibility. I really don't know.
Graduate assistant.
You've got these. He was Oklahoma State, was he not?
Look it up. I
could be wrong. So. A wonderful target athlete at a bad landing spot. He needs to pray for free agency, but there's something about his game, his ability to get open, stay open. Just because a big guy who's the most athletic target that played at Cincinnati, who's now with the Jets. What was that kid's name? Number 87. Good player. Good. Went to Auburn. Name escapes me. He's on the Jets roster right now. Maybe one of the guys can help us out.
Tight end for the Jets. Are you talking about?
Tight end for the Jets now. Previously at Cincinnati.
Yeah,
exactly.
Driving me nuts. I can see
not just me. And I don't have any kids, Balky. I don't have the worries you have. This is the problem.
He dyed his hair blonde for hard.
Dyed his hair blonde. Natural will get you further. Is all I'm pointing.
He's a really smart guy.
And everything about him, you look at him and say that guy should be a tremendous.
CJ Uzoma.
Yes,
that's who it was.
CJ should be a tremendous contributor at the position, but his career didn't work out where he had the right landing spot. It's the same reason Irv Smith. I know you're picking on Irv Smith, but nobody can be productive at that position. In Cincinnati, when Hayden Hurst caught all those passes, he still had an 8-yard average because Burrow would get him. Yeah, it's a whole other story. We talk all day about it. It's difficult.
It is difficult. The first 4 years of Jelani Woods' career were indeed spent at Oklahoma State.
Yeah,
he was a graduate student and played his final year at the University of Virginia.
That's why I get, boy, he looked good at Virginia too.
He did look good. He did look very good. Last thing I'll bring up here is Reddy's question here. Thoughts on Leonard Fournette? Is he a better running back 4 than Cam Akers, Elijah Mitchell, Justice Hill, etc.? Okay. So if I had the decision right now, I'm not cutting Akers or Mitchell for Fournette. I like Akers and Mitchell better. Justice Hill gets a little bit dicey. I just don't know the shape that Fournette's in right now. And I don't know how fast he can be a contributor. And I also think about how I understand Buffalo went out and got this guy, but I also know that Buffalo, for whatever reason, just does not like to run the football as much as you'd think. And so for that reason, I think it's sort of a toss-up between Justice Hill and Leonard Fournette. Maybe I lean towards Fournette because he's the mystery box, but I don't know, man. It'd be tough.
If you got your spot on the roster, use the global waiver wire. Get him for a couple bucks, see what he does, and maybe you found some late-breaking gold. But, yeah, that's how I would handle Fournette.
That's how we handle the show. The High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour here every Friday. It's going to.
We got to go already.
We got to go already. Yeah, like my wife is out of town this weekend again, so my mother is watching my kids right now, so I got to get home to her. But Ferrell, it is. I'd be remiss if I didn't say how much I enjoy these Fridays with you and enjoy talking football with you. Great guest tonight, Jake Rennie, and I can't wait to do it again with you next week.
You know what? If Jake wins the $1 million, I'm interested to know what his vinyl collection will look like, because I think he'll go buy some vinyl. Jake's an old soul, you know.
A lot of Steely Dan, a lot of Led Zeppelin.
Yeah, giving him a little insight.
Two good choices.
Ferrell,
we will check out the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship at kffsc.com, and we will talk with you next week.
Thank you, sir.
Ferrell Elliott, the definitive commissioner of fantasy football. Want to thank him. I want to thank our guest tonight, Jake Rennie, the second-place team owner in the FFPC main event. I want to thank the FFPC, Rob Bryson, and, of course, each and every one of you. High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour returns a week from today with the third-place team owners in the main event. Yeah, that's right. The guys right behind Jake in the standings. They're going to come on next week. It's Peter Puzo and Paul Teixeira will be joining us on the program next week. In case you missed Tuesday's RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown, it was yours truly and the 19th place Fantasy Pros Championship team owner, Chris Lajawa. You can check that out on the FFPC socials, including YouTube. That's still up there. Show returns this Tuesday night at 10 p.m. with Mark Davidson, guy who's been on this show before. He's the owner of a top 40 team in the Fantasy Pros Championship as he's chasing a $1 million grand prize as well. In case you missed last night's High Stakes Fantasy Football Show on the Better Sports Network, no worries. It is on the FFPC YouTube. It's on the BSN YouTube if you want to watch that back. Dave Terpoli from the FFPC was my guest this coming Thursday. We're going to go live from 7 until 9 with 4 for 4's John Daigle. It'll be me and him chopping it up for 2 hours. Always love doing shows with that dude. Remember to go to myffpc.com to play in the FFPC Weekly Challenge. No draft, no salary cap. Choose the 10 or 12 players that you want to roll with. No stacking, 1 player per team. And once you choose your players, you just watch them pile up the points, and you can win as much as $2,500 this weekend. As little as $35 to enter. You can also enter for $200 as well. Global bidding, global fab, now available at myffpc.com. Try it out. It's going to be great. It's going to be a massive time saver for all you volume players out there, something that you had asked for in our survey that we sent out earlier this year, and we answered, and it is available right now, and hopefully it makes those Wednesday evenings, Saturday nights, and Sunday mornings go a lot more smooth for you. Remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment on the video, share it with your friends and enemies, and get notified every single time we go live, which will be Tuesday at 10 p.m. with myself and Mark Davidson. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Really appreciate you. Your weekend officially starts now.
This has been another episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com. It was broadcast live and was watched around the world. Balky and Ferrell will be back next week with more analysis, more interviews, and more advice from guests much smarter than they are. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk with you again next week.
Two things I have to remind you of. Number one, 9:30 a.m. kickoff from Germany. Chiefs and Dolphins. Get those lineups submitted Saturday night or very early Sunday morning. That's the bad news, that you got to make sure you make an adjustment to your schedule. Good news is, for those of you who observe it, daylight savings time, we're falling behind, so you'll get that extra hour to submit lineups or prepare or whatever you want to do. You can do that as well. I'll leave it up to you. Spend your time how you will. May the ball bounce your way in week 9. We'll talk with you again next week. Thanks for watching, everybody.